打开了他的眼界，他使他下决心要通西域。汉朝只有汉朝通西域以后，把这个现在这个新疆地区的交通线整合，完了他的力量又到了现在中亚地区。
Zhang Qian's report included news of Iran, India and other Central Asian countries, and at the end, news of the Roman Empire, the westernmost destination of silk exported from China. After the Han army defeated the Huns and the Western Corridor was opened, the 36 nations of the Western territories pledged allegiance to the Han court. With that, the Han court began to garrison troops in the territories and set up the Protectorate of the Western Territories, which established effective control over all the nations there. Conflicts between the nations were settled, and the Western Han dynasty entered a flourishing period of peace and development. After Zhang Qian opened up the Silk Road, cultural and economic contacts between the East and West became common, and the Silk Road continued to bring prosperity to China through successive dynasties right up until the Yuan dynasty in the 13th century. The starting point of the Silk Road was Chang'an. By the middle of the reign of the Western Han, the city had been expanded several times and was now truly massive. The sprawling palace occupied fully 1/3 of the city, and outside the city proper, there were 160 residential neighborhoods called Li. Cities can't survive without markets, and Chang'an had 9 of them. All were supervised by the government, and they were divided into an eastern market and a western market. All transactions had to be carried out in accordance with government regulations, and the system instituted at that time continued for hundreds of years until the end of the Tang dynasty. In the Han dynasty, the city of Chang'an was already a rich city with wide boulevards. Pedestrian traffic was heavy, and business was highly developed. By the 6th year of the reign of Emperor Wu Di, the population of China had reached 37 million. The population of Chang'an was 250,000, but this figure swells to 1 million if you include the population of the satellite towns surrounding it. Chang'an was certainly comparable in size and influence to Rome. In fact, the two cities stood unrivaled at the two ends of the known world. Music, dance and theatre were the staples of Han marketplace culture, and these art forms assimilated foreign artistic influences. The audiences for such performances, however, were confined to the rich and powerful, and the performers came from the ranks of the common people. It's hard to imagine how rich people could be in the Han dynasty, but historical documents include numerous accounts of the emperor bestowing large quantities of gold on this or that individual. In the 70 years from the beginning of the Han dynasty until the ascension to the throne of Emperor Wu Di, China experienced political stability and suffered no serious natural disasters. State finances constantly improved, and the people prospered. This was a time when the government enjoyed great prestige and the country enjoyed peace and prosperity. China was not only the most populous country in the world, it was also the richest.
"钱很多，是吧？中央的财政应该财政这个积累很大。 这个所谓钱呢，就是船前的绳子烂掉了，仓过国家太仓里的粮食呢吃不完，都腐烂掉了，我想呢，这个群众至于百姓当中的这个生活富裕到什么程度啊，应该说是可想而知的。
Large numbers of books and records were stored at Weiyang Palace in Tianlu Hall, and this is probably where the great historian Sima Qian began his research. His work, Records of the Historian, was completed in the year 98 BC. Sima Qian's masterpiece was the first of 24 histories spanning all of China's dynasties up to that time. It began in remote antiquity in the era of the Yellow Emperor and ended with the reign of Han Emperor Wu Di.
司马迁的历史观呢，是多民族大一统、中央集权的历史观，所以写《史记》这本书就能看出来。更发展的一步呢是《汉书》，关公写《汉书》，《汉书》里边有地理志，把全国中央呢在长安，全国呢多少郡，103个郡吧，多少县，3000个县。 从中央一直写到东海边，长江、黄河、长江，一直到岳江，一直到海南岛、西南夷，一直到云南、贵州，多少郡、多少县都写了。
Never before in history had such a vast land and so many ethnic groups been unified. And this unprecedented situation raised an important question. What sort of philosophy and ethical guidelines would best serve ruling such a large and diverse country?
A review of the Qin and Han dynasties onward reveals that many scholars proudly joined in the effort to create the political theory and social ideals that contributed to the lengthy period of peace and prosperity enjoyed during the Han dynasty. This was a time when the ideal of a unified country was being developed, and the people of all of China's ethnic groups worked together to gradually make it a reality.
以汉族为主体的这样一个中华民族已经形成了，它的形成过程和秦汉时代这个由王国到帝国的这个中央帝国、中央集权的统一的国家的形成是密切相关的。
In the Han Dynasty, Chinese intellectuals helped spread Han culture by embodying it in their own lives, and they created an entire set of cultural standards covering literature, law, ethics and social customs, while drawing on the wisdom of all the ethnic groups. At the same time, points of agreement were sought with these ethnic groups while resolving differences with them, thereby creating the great traditions of Chinese civilization. However, never before in history had such a vast land and so many ethnic groups been unified, and this raised an important question. What kind of thinking and ideals should be used to rule such a large country? In the end, Emperor Wu Di accepted the suggestion of Dong Zhongshu that Confucian thought and teaching become the official doctrine of the state, and that all other schools of thought be banned. Thus began a period of 2,000 years in which Confucius was revered above all others.
中华文明这样一个历史能够几千年延续下来，它的不变的 DNA 的存在是根本。这种不变的 DNA 是什么呢？我觉得，从这个精神领域，就是它的一种，比如在汉代确立以这个独尊儒术，就儒家思想，尽管它是在公元前这个500年左右，是吧？由于当时的一些学者。 比如包括以孔子为代表的学者提出来了，但是作为一种国家行为，变成一种国家的统治思想，是在汉代确立下来的。
The greatest legacy of the Han Dynasty is its innovation and implementation of its theory about what a state should be like. From Liubang, the first emperor of Han, until the ascension of Emperor Wu Di to the throne, the dominant political thought in China had been Taoism. The guiding principle of Taoism was governing by achieving harmony with nature. But by the time of Emperor Wu Di, China had become more powerful militarily and stronger economically, and so this emperor adopted a more proactive approach. The Han court looked upon the legend of the 5 great emperors of antiquity, the foremost of whom was the Yellow Emperor, as the centerpiece of its official ideology. It maintained that Chinese civilization had developed slowly over many centuries, with the greatest contribution made by the Han people, supplemented by the efforts of all the other ethnic groups. In the year 110 BC, Emperor Wu Di led tens of thousands of people on a pilgrimage that was unprecedented in scale. The pilgrimage led to Mount Tai, the foremost of China's 5 sacred mountains, and at Mount Tai, the emperor offered sacrifices to heaven and earth. China had become a unified multi-ethnic country, one that had achieved unparalleled cohesion. The Chinese nation appeared on the stage of human history with an entirely new demeanor.
一种空前的那种民族凝聚力，因为当时的世界上还没有这样一个几千万人的一个民族能够凝聚在这样一个核心四周，凝聚在这样一个旗帜之下，凝聚在这样一个政治体制之内。
The great undertaking of uniting all of China's ethnic groups into a single state and integrating them both geographically and culturally began with the Qin dynasty. The community of nations created by this in the land of China has been the source of the endless vitality of Chinese civilization down through the ages.
During the Qing and Han dynasties, major advances were made in many aspects of society. Reforms were carried out of the political system and the social economy, and in the relations among ethnic groups and foreign exchange. All these developments, in their turn, served to cultivate the rich and splendid Qing and Han culture. For many generations since, the achievements of Qing and Han in science and technology, philosophy and religion, history and literature, and sculpture and painting have exerted a powerful influence. Perhaps most importantly, it was under Qing and Han that Chinese culture gained its first exposure to the outside world. And thank you for staying with us on New Frontiers. Tune in again next time when we'll continue with our major series, Chinese Civilization. I'm Ji Xiaojun from CCTV International. Bye for now.